And this afternoon, two environmental non-governmental organizations, the Ghana Environmental Advocacy Group, have been led also by Rocha. Ghana is leading that course and asking and questioning the authorities as to why we are not having more of the foreign nationals being prosecuted in relation to involving themselves in illegal mining. In spite of the arrest of hundreds of nationals, the group is advocating that the authorities would have to act fast and to crack down on illegal mining. The call is coming in the wake of the arrest of galamseyer kingpin Aisha Huang, who has been reportedly making her way back into the country, who was also picked up by the security agencies a few days ago. But the advocacy group is asking for some measures to be enrolled. I would put that on the screens for you shortly. But let me bring in Daryl Bosu now, who's the Deputy National Director for Rocha, Ghana, joining us via Zoom. Thank you for your time here on the call. So you're leading this campaign, but first of all, help us understand what your exact concerns are. Is it the case that you believe that the issue of illegal mining will be stopped permanently if we crack down on foreigners?
Thank you very much. So, Bless, we appreciate the opportunity. This campaign is both being led by Ghana Environmental Advocacy Group and Rocha, Ghana. The issue is not the fact that if we deal with foreigners punitively to resolve our problem, but the issue is that we need to ensure fair administration of justice in this country. And particularly looking at the issue of galamseyer, the impunity, the emboldened attitude with which these illegal perpetrators are engaging their activities means that we really need to do something right. And so far, what we have realized that we are not doing so well is the bit on ensuring that prosecution is fair and covers all people without any favor of any people, particularly for people who are politically exposed. Now, if you take a look also at the report that was coming from the Fourth Estate, they made an inquiry using the RTI and requested for information from the Ghana prison how many Chinese are within our cells or jail, and it came out that only 2 Chinese people are in the cells, and you ask yourself, what really took them there? I mean, if you remember and recall how many Chinese have been arrested on countless occasions and paraded, and in respect of galamseyer, you ask yourself, why do we have only 2 Chinese nationals in our prisons? And this for us is worrying. And we have also been complaining about the fact that there seems to be a problem with enforcing the law. The government seems to be having challenges. We've had vanguard time and time again, but nothing really is happening in terms of addressing the issue. So it means that there's something wrong with the whole process. Once arrest is made, we need to ensure that prosecution is also done fairly, and that is not happening. That's why we are concerned, because if you really look at it, a lot of Ghanaians are just at the bottom of the pyramid when it comes to mining. But those who are at the top, who are the Chinese, who are the big politically exposed persons, they manage to escape the law. And this is something that is not helpful for building a country that claims to be run by the rule of law. And that is why we thought that we make an inquiry from the IGP and also from the Minister of Justice why this is happening.
But then, obviously, you're also asking that some transparency be provided on the matter in terms of how many cases are being prosecuted. What problem would that solve, by the way?
I think our request is for an accounting. So when we say accounting, we do not only want to know how many people have been prosecuted and all of that, but it also tells you what is really happening. You cannot be arresting so many people, parading them all the time, but if you go, it means that if you go down to check in our prisons and also in terms of cases that have been successfully prosecuted, nothing is done. It means that there's something wrong with the law, with the compliance mechanisms that we have in place. And as you know, we've been talking about galamseyer for a long time. This also more or less reflects the kind of weakness in terms of ensuring that the compliance bit supports the policy. And this is where the missing gap is. We have a good policies. We talked about good regulations and also regulations and compliance regimes, but we are not enforcing it. And this is where we can track what exactly is happening and know where to ensure that we close the bottlenecks.
And then to the specifics about Aisha Huang, who obviously is now in the custody of the security agencies. What's your expectation from government on this? The obvious thing is to call for the prosecution, but the belief is that this goes way beyond her.
Well, I think we made a big mistake as a country. The president admitted it. We need to now take the opportunity and correct the past by making sure that the full provisions within the law is applied, nothing less than 20 years and then deportation. We will not tolerate any further deportation without subjecting her to the laws of the land. And this is something that has been a weakness within the enforcement regime for addressing galamseyer and the involvement of foreign nationals, particularly the Chinese. So it is our expectation that government will take the opportunity and not repeat the mistakes of the past. Not that we don't expect anything less.
And there are some legal concerns also emerging. But at this point, let me also bring into the conversation, Daryl, the co-founder of Eco-Conscious Citizens, Awula Serwah, who's also joining us. Thank you for your time. So you've also been monitoring what it is that government intends to do with this particular case. But there are some concerns as well about the identity involved and as to whether or not the lawyers for the foreign national involved in this particular case could challenge her own identity. Of course, we're claiming that this is the same Aisha Huang who's made her way into the country. Some say it's not enough to say that in court. What's your thought?
I can say that I don't see what the concerns are. We have her identity. We have her fingerprints. We know that the person before us is the same person who was deported in 2019, who has come back. I should think that before she was deported or before she was arrested the first time, so there were some processes. Her fingerprints would have been taken, her photo would have been taken. Therefore, we can compare the two fingerprints and we can see that we are talking about the one and the same person. I don't really see any difficulties.
But then, we're then supposing that, of course, the institutions such as the Immigration Service and other security agencies would have that intact. Knowing the circumstances under which she was extradited to China, we do know that this is a powerful person we're talking about. Her ability to even come back into this country, possess, for instance, the Ghana card, raises a lot of questions about what may happen to her identity.
I mean, the only question to be raised is how we're enforcing our own rules and regulations. To me, that's the question to be raised. Why she was not sentenced and made to serve a sentence before she was deported. But that's neither here nor there. We are where we are now. She has been arrested. We know that the person who has been arrested is the person who was engaging in illegal activities. She should be charged, put before the court. And as Daryl has rightly said, she should be sentenced. And then after she has served her sentence, she can be deported. If we are a sovereign country and we are prepared to enforce our rules and regulations, I honestly don't foresee any problems. We need to get to the bottom of this. I can't go to China and break the laws with impunity because a sovereign country like China is not going to allow it. If any foreign nationals are able to do this, we don't blame the foreign nationals, we blame ourselves for not enforcing our own laws and regulations. We need to look in the mirror.
And personally, what do you make of government's fight against illegal mining? Because some say, looking at the arrest of Aisha Huang, it goes to prove the fact that government is committed to the cause and that the security agencies are on top of their job in terms of cracking down on illegal mining. Is that your reading into this case?
Well, when I'm looking at illegal mining, what is being done, I look at the state of our rivers. So we can jump up and down, we can do anything. If the state of our rivers are what they are, and as was said earlier on, some culprits are paraded every now and again, but the illegal mining by Ghanaians and non-Ghanaians goes on with impunity, then it's difficult to say that there's any seriousness being attached to illegal mining. The facts speak for themselves. Behind you, we can see what is going on. I mean, the state of our waters and Water and Sewage Corporation telling us that if things continue as they are, we might have to import water. Is there any seriousness in our tackling illegal mining? I leave that answer to viewers.
Interesting point there. And Daryl, we do know that your group, together with that of Awula Serwah, have raised even concerns about what's happening to our strategic forest reserves, such as the Etiwa landscape. That comes to the front burner again, looking at what the concerns are as to how we're not cracking down seriously on illegal mining. For you, is there a justification the government would have to review that process of bauxite mining? And of course, you're painting that picture to us of how dire the consequences may be.
Yes, I think the issue is about how as a country we value our resources and the extent to which we ensure that it is used judiciously. Our agreement with China, which is, and as we heard from the senior minister some years back, the fact that because we have an economic arrangement with China, we are allowing them to get away with all of these things is quite unfair. And that shouldn't be the thinking with which we attach to the resources that we have. They have more value than we just attaching some economic value now. And that's why we are saying that government should explore and revalue the trade-offs well before they even consider giving out Atiwa Forest as part of any arrangement that is economically benefiting the political economy. We need to be very, very judicious with the way we use our resources. We cannot say that because of some peanuts we're getting from a country like China, we then allow our sovereignty to be taken away because of all of that. And so for us, we still stand by what we're indicating, that government should look at a more long-term judicious way of using our resources, paying much attention to the trade-offs. And that's for us is what is important. It's not that we can't get bauxite elsewhere, but water you cannot get elsewhere. So let's really pay attention to that and make sure that we do not allow others to determine the course and way by which we should use our natural resources, like the way the Chinese people are doing now.
Anyway, I want you all to hold on for me, Serwah and Daryl. There's also some heat coming through from Parliament because the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, is also pushing for the prosecution of Aisha Huang. Just take a listen. We'll bring that.
Arrested in 2017 and charged with undertaking small-scale mining operations contrary to the law. However, she was deported to China in 2018, a move which attracted widespread public criticism. Former senior minister Yawa Safo justified government's decision.
The main company that is helping develop the infrastructure system in Ghana is a Chinese company. There are other things behind the scenes. Putting that lady in jail in Ghana is not going to solve your problem.
Aisha Huang slipped into the country through the Togo border, having changed her identity and returned to her galamseyer business in the Ashanti region. She and 3 others were arrested upon intelligence by the National Security. Court documents available to Joy News showed she had changed her name to Huang Rocha. She has been charged with engaging in the sale and purchase of minerals without valid license and engaging in mining without license. Member of Parliament's Mines and Energy Committee, Edward Bauer, wants government to demonstrate seriousness in prosecuting her this time around.
She knows that she will come when they arrest her. Worst case scenario, she self uses her network to find a way of freeing herself. And that's why she could dare to come back to this country. So I just hope that this time Aisha will be used as an example to other foreigners who engage in these things in our country.
Aisha Huang has pleaded not guilty to all the charges and has been remanded to police custody. She's expected to reappear on September 14.
Once Parliament resumes, I'll file a question in the name of the minority leader for the Minister of Interior to provide the list of foreign nationals arrested and being prosecuted. So she should consider that will be done early October. As a follow-up, now on her petition to Parliament, I believe the Public Affairs Secretariat of Parliament will respond appropriately. But I should say that the Speaker, Albans Bagbin, is very active to the task. There is a problem with how Parliament deals with petitions. So part of the amendment to our standing orders will be to deal with it. You see, when you bring the petition, it has to be tabled, and probably a member will have to take it up. That is not how petitions are handled globally across the world. Now, to borrow her words, but mockery of the rule of law. She says mockery of the legal system. Now, to answer Lizzie, one is back because Ghana is profitable for her and she has a favor of the elite political system, nothing more. That's why she can breach our law with such impunity.
But Parliament has also failed us in this regard.
Parliament has failed Ghana in many respects. I'll share some with you as we dance along.
But in this case, you agree that you have failed us. Why that? Why did you sit aloof for this to happen?
I say Parliament have failed us in many respects. Not being responsive, not being too transparent, and not being accountable, and not protective of the public purse because of excessive.
Okay, the issue about Parliament now. Let me start off with you, Sogah.
Yes, I mean, Parliament has their responsibilities, but I think that right now, if we want to get to the bottom of this, we have to look at our enforcement regime. For me, that's where the problem lies, our enforcement regime. Ghanaians, foreigners, anybody engaging in illegal mining, and even when they are engaging in legal mining, if they are not following the processes they should follow under their license, the law should take its course. And I think the problem we are having is that the law is not taking its course. But I want to go further and say that we have big problems ahead. It's not just the question of not enforcing laws. It's also the question of not knowing what our interests are. We need to show a little bit of leadership in preserving our natural resources. If we don't take care, we will not have any drinking water. And I think this is a very, 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 very serious point. It's not just Ghana. There's also the same thing happening in parts of Nigeria. We really, really need to sit up. And I think we can use her as a scapegoat, and she rightly deserves to be prosecuted. She rightly deserves to be jailed. But more importantly, we need to look at what is before us, the destruction of our environment done with licenses. We are looking at what may happen with Atiwa Forest Reserve if sense does not prevail. So that's the point I'll make, that we can focus on Aisha, but I think we should look at the broader and bigger picture. What is happening to our environment?
Of course, we need to state at this moment that Joy News is learning that the Attorney General is taking some further action on this. He's asking for the dockets on Aisha Huang to be submitted to his office, obviously giving us some signal. And that, of course, news just coming through for us. We'll be following up on that for you. But Daryl, if that's what the Attorney General is asking for, it appears that indeed your demands may be looked at this point. Is that your hope?
Yes, I think this is long overdue, and as Awula said, you realize that if we can deal with this Aisha Huang issue, we will have been able to deal with the big canker that is plaguing our law enforcement regime here when it comes to natural resources. So now it's a vicious cycle. It goes round and round. It always comes back to us, and we don't deal with it like Aisha Huang. If we can now deal with it, get to the bottom of it, that will be solving a big problem. So we are looking forward to how the government takes this forward. Yes, we tend to put pressure on the blame on the foot of the parliament, but I think it's the executive and the judiciary who need to really take a big chunk of the blame in this and make sure that we do not have this mistake repeating itself.
But rarely are we being fair to the foreign nationals. It's as though we're fixated on the Chinese.
That's why we are saying that we need to look at our laws and regulations. It doesn't matter who is doing it. Yes, the Chinese are causing a lot of harm. There's no way we can get around that. But who is allowing them to do so? Can anybody just waltz into China and break their laws? No, because this is a sensible country. We take their rules and regulations very seriously. If we don't, and anybody, and let me make it quite clear, Ghanaians and non-Ghanaians can break the law with impunity. And if they have the right connections, nothing happens. We can make a big example out of Aisha, but what we need to do is ask ourselves what is going on in this country. And I'll harp upon it. It's not, we need to investigate matters, and it's the police who investigate, not the judiciary. The judiciary come into it when the person has been put before them. So yes, issues brought before them and the proper sentence is not given, then we can blame the judiciary. But from where I'm looking at right now, it's the beginning stages. She needed to be arrested, which she was, and what happened afterwards. But I think more importantly, we really, really, really need to look at enforcement. If we're not ready to enforce anything, we should all just sit there and allow our country to be totally destroyed. And I really respect the organizations who have come together and have said enough is enough. The government must do something. But it's a bigger picture than this Chinese national. It's not just the Chinese who are breaking the law. It's anybody who wants to do so.
We need to be wrapping up at this point, but I'm putting that question to both of you. So I'll start off with Daryl. Will this ever end?
A big question, and we want this to end, and we are asking government to start listening to the people. So far, we've had we have so many discussions, so many dialogues and all of that, but what we have seen is that the government is not listening enough to the people, what CSOs are saying, what institutions are saying, and the enforcement is still lacking. If we deal with those aspects, this will eventually come to an end.
Sogah, for you?
I'll say that it will end when we want it to end. It will only end when we want it to end. When we decide that we are ready to enforce our laws and regulations and deal with anybody, whether they are well connected or not, whether they're in the party or not, who is engaging in illegal activities, we're focusing on mining, it will end. If we are not prepared and the political will isn't there, we'll continue dancing around things and we'll never get to the bottom of the problem. So yes, it will end when we want it to end. The ball is in our courts.
I'm grateful, Awula Serwah, co-founder of Eco-Conscious Citizens, and Daryl Bosu with Rocha, Ghana. Thank you for joining us. In fact, there's more on illegal mining because in the Elembele district as well, we're picking some details of the police service denying having custody of some excavators. We'll tell you all about that when we come back from this break. Please stay.